I would like to introduce Francis Resta. Francis has joined us today, Wheelers for the Wounded on the Rubicon Trail. Francis is a World War II veteran and a recipient of the Purple Heart. What'd you think of the day?
Oh, I can't tell you enough how incredible this day has been for me. Watching these guys and gals driving these vehicles over terrain that I could not believe. I did make a joke when we were in some pretty rough areas, and I told the driver, Matt, that I was with, that I need to get my CRV here and show you guys how to really ride. And that to them would be a big joke because the CRV couldn't even begin to do what these guys do.
I think the tire diameters on some of these vehicles are taller than your CRV.
Yes, they are. And there were two places where they did some incredible driving together. One is called the Box. Watching them succeed in actually accomplishing the impossible. And I jumped up and yelled and screamed. It was just an incredible thing to witness. And I never knew that this existed. It's a new kind of sport, I guess. Maybe it's not so new, but to me it's a new sport. And I want to talk about the vehicles themselves. They are incredible machines. And as I mentioned to you, I saw in Germany houses that were all the same, had the same furniture, the same linen, the same curtains, the same everything, because the state decided what was going to be manufactured. I think China is probably the same way, because the state there decides. But here in America, the dollar vote decides what's going to be bought. And these vehicles are all different. And to me, it is America. It is showing what America really is.
We had some flags on the vehicles today, and there is a real pride in the fact that this is a uniquely American thing. It is, in fact, actually four-wheeling, what you saw today. People worldwide who have an interest in this revere the idea of going on the Rubicon Trail. That is an icon. It's an iconic trail. There is actually a Jeep Wrangler model referred to as the Rubicon Edition. And it is equipped in a way that it can function on this trail, and that's considered a benchmark for the hardest four-wheel drive trail that you can be on. And you were there.
Yes,
that's what
I
you
saw
did
it
today.
I saw it.
It's rather startling, isn't it, at first?
It is.
To see the large rocks and the obstacles.
Yeah.
I know you're from the Sacramento area. You're familiar with the Rubicon and Desolation Wilderness.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And my understanding is that you've hiked in this area extensively.
In the Crystal Range, I hiked a lot, and not so much the Rubicon, but I've flown over this area many times on trips to Tahoe. It is the safest route for a single-engine plane. There's places to land if you had to, all the way through to Meeks Bay, and so that's where most of the aircraft, the light aircraft, fly up to Tahoe, go across the Rubicon.
You were a pilot, I understand.
Yes.
And so you used to fly from Sacramento to these areas?
Yeah.
So how would you compare being on the ground over that same terrain that you saw from the air? In this case, the Rubicon or Desolation Wilderness.
Well, of course, when you're flying, you're not sightseeing to land. You're looking for places to land. It's just beautiful country. You know, all of the Sierras is my country. It's absolutely beautiful, and the Pacific Crest Trail, all of it is great.
Of the guests, the veterans. Did you have a chance to talk with any of them?
Yes, I've talked to some of them. There's the guy, he's not a guest, but he's from the Screaming Eagles, the 101st Division. I was the 102nd Division, and often people mistake when they ask what unit, and I say 102nd. Oh, you're a paratrooper. No, I was an infantry. And then there's two guys that also I don't think are guests, but they are amputees, and they're incredible people. There's one guy that I believe is a guest who's in a wheelchair, And he's a very interesting man.
That's Fred.
Yes.
Fred. You met Fred.
Yeah.
And then Roy, who rode in the vehicle in the sluice box.
Yes.
Roy is also a very interesting individual.
Yes.
Fred has had quite an extensive career, military-wise and other things. He's a pilot. I don't know if you got into a conversation with him about flying.
Yes, we did.
And he also has graduate degrees, lives in Nevada. He lives in the Gardnerville-Minden area. This is his second year here. Last year was his first. And I don't know if you noticed, he's a student driving. He drove the vehicle. He is actually paraplegic. This is the second year I've seen him doing it.
Wow.
That part of it is his skill as a pilot and the perceptions he has of terrain and being able to negotiate a vehicle.
Matt initiated me today too. I drove a little bit.
Good.
Yeah.
What you think?
And it was okay. I used to take my Jeep, my Cherokee, on off trail with the kids, and so I'm familiar with some of steering over obstacles, but not like this.
As extreme as this.
This is something else.
I would just hazard a guess you've never spent this much time in low range in a four-wheel drive vehicle.
I was surprised at how little ground we covered. Just 8 miles round trip.
I caution people on that all the time. When they say, well, what kind of mileage do you get when you're on the Rubicon? And I explain, how many hours are you running the engine? Because that's what the fuel consumption is about.
Right.
You're used to that from flying. I mean, in a sense. That slow speed, though, the time clicks away and you're using fuel and the gauge is going like that. My first time on this trail that you were on today was in 1967. I was 18 years old, and I grew up in Gardnerville. My parents had a CJ5 Jeep that I took my first driving exam in at the age of 16. By 18, I went over the Rubicon Trail with a stone stock Jeep, not modified like you see here. It had none of the oversized tire provisions or any of the things that you see. It was just as they came off the assembly line. The kind of equipment that's a necessity now, that would have been unimaginable in 1967 at that period. Tires were 30-inch diameter tire. That was it.
Right.
And some of the tires that you saw in these vehicles today were over 40 inches in diameter.
And sometimes they deliberately choose the harder route.
They do.
When there's a choice.
You think? You noticed that? You picked up on that right away?
I picked up on that right away.
I bet.
Where there's a choice, they choose the hard
So
road.
they want to make sure they get in every ounce of adrenaline that they possibly can while they're here.
I think you can get addicted to this the same as we got addicted to flying. You're your own boss, and nobody can help you. You have to do it yourself. You are entirely in charge, and that gives you a real adrenaline push.
The vehicle breaks, and sometimes you're alone, but often here on this trail there are other people around. Some of the equipment that you take to be able to do these kinds of trails and take into account that you may have breakage or a failure, mechanical failure, are onboard welders, air compressors, running air tools, running welders that literally can repair a frame or a broken spring shackle or a tie rod or a steering component or whatever just to get you off the trail. So there's a great number of things that are involved in being seriously interested in this. So there's this constant accumulation of equipment as well. There's a huge aftermarket that supports the kinds of specialty equipment that we're using today. Locking axles, transfer cases with extreme low range ratios, ultra strong axles, and spring lift kits. Of course, everybody was lifting. It's very interesting, but there were some flat-fendered older release models still. You see, at least in body, I'd be really surprised if they had the original equipment. How many years ago did you move to the Sacramento area? Are we always from there?
No, I was from New York originally when I enlisted, but I went to school in Michigan and Wayne State University in Detroit and Ann Arbor, the University of Michigan. And so I lived in Detroit and worked for the auto industry. And then I moved to Sacramento in 1960. Well, I live in Davis now.
In Davis, yeah. That's a nice community. The university there. And
I like small towns.
And you have the campus there. There's a culture that goes along with campuses. It's always pleasant to be around. Did you have much interaction with the vets, the young vets? Today?
Yes, quite a bit, actually. It was Simon, who is an Iraq veteran, and his friend. They're very warm toward World War II veterans. And I feel very privileged to have rapped with them and tried to joke with them. Their world is different, and their humor is different. But I got some laughs. I managed to say some funny things occasionally, and that's what they like. You know, they're not going to get serious because that's tough.
That's not what this was about today. This is my third year of coming and supporting this event. There is no simple fix for some of the things that these young people have been through. But what we extend here is our acknowledgement and encouragement and support. I've seen some good things come of it. I have seen Vietnam-era veterans be able to reach these younger vets and encourage them to get into counseling, things of that sort.
I wrote a book, the Combat Veteran and PTSD, and I gave it to Simon today. I don't know if he's had a chance to read it. It's only 80 pages, so you can read it at one sitting. But it does help veterans.
Good.
It went to Afghanistan. Psychiatrist in my VFW post, he took a copy with him and gave it to some of the combat units, and they all wanted copies. So I feel like I've helped the veterans. I love these young guys. You know, I've read a number of things that the Department of Defense has tried and minimize PTSD, but I don't believe that it can be. It's something that happens to combat veterans, and unfortunately, all of the attempts that I have read about are not very functional. They don't really work.
You feel it's just the nature of combat?
It's the nature of war, yes. Makes angry men and women now. I still take therapy for PTSD, and my therapist said that she's read many books about PTSD by her colleagues, and she thinks that my book is one of the best.
One of the things that's made Newsweek and other publications recently is the traditional resistance to the idea that there is a need for help in a combat environment or in a military support system. That is an entirely different scenario than when these individuals come home and they're no longer in that support system. Regardless of how dysfunctional that support is, or regardless of how effective it is at least support. And coming home, they don't have that.
That's correct. They're different people coming home. That's the big problem, is that there's no way that the families and sweethearts can ever get back the person that left. That's the hard part. They keep waiting, and that person is not going to come back.
My wife's uncle, who passed away just very recently, is from your generation. He was drafted out of high school and ended up 2 days after the Normandy invasion at St. Mary Glaze on graves detail. I don't have to tell you anything else. And we loved him dearly, and we were very close to him, and I tried to be as understanding of that as I could be.
It's very difficult. It's just two worlds, and the two worlds cannot communicate. It's very difficult. The only solution, if you want a solution, that I believe, is to get therapy. That can help, and it can help bridge, help create the communication that otherwise wouldn't be there.
This is what your book's about, then, is to encourage that to take place.
The first 2 chapters are reminiscent, nostalgia stuff from World War II, and then the last 2 chapters are more clinical.
I wish you the very best with that book. I wish the community and I wish the combat veterans success with your book.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure meeting you. It's really been a wonderful opportunity, and I'd like to get to know you better.
Well, thank you.
It'd be my pleasure.
You have a good week.